Good afternoon or good evening, and welcome to our session on pre-enrollment about improving yield and conversion through pre-enrollment strategies, readiness, and stopouts. So with that, let's get started with introductions. Next slide, please. Hi, I'm Amy Smith, Chief Learning Officer of StraighterLine, and we're going to do name and title, but we got to have a little bit of trivia, and we'd love to hear from you in the chat room. So let's do COVID hobby. So, Amy Smith, Chief Learning Officer of StraighterLine, my COVID hobby, I bought a new bike. So I'm now up to 40, 50 miles on an afternoon, and it feels great. With that, I'm going to pass it to you, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Mashaw. I'm the head of marketing and enrollment for StraighterLine. My COVID hobbies, two. One is I've been working on trying to perfect a number of cocktail recipes. And then maybe as a result of that, I have also turned my garage into a home gym. So depending on the day, I'm doing one, the other, or both of those things.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. My name is Laurel Hogue. I am the Vice Provost for Extended Studies at the University of Central Missouri. And my COVID hobby has been canceling vacations and renovating my spare room to make a home office for remote work.
Thanks. Thanks to you both. All right, next slide. Let's get started. So anytime we're talking around enrollment and yield, right, it's probably good to just get a lay of the landscape where we are in the United States. And we labeled this one sort of the enrollment crisis. Of course, you can see the US map and scale there, but I thought I'd run through a couple of sets of numbers. Varying patterns of fertility, migration, and immigration have impacted enrollment in higher education across the country, both pre and post COVID. So when we think about the Northeast and the Midwest, they ultimately stand to lose up to 5% of college age populations in the coming years. So if those current patterns continue, institutions will have to find ways to recruit and retain significant numbers of students. Otherwise, we face retrenchment. We're back into 90s type numbers that we saw a couple of decades ago over the next 10 to 15 years. Take those two facts together, and US population trends to project more than a 10% reduction in college enrollments by the end of 2020. So if past correlations between demographic characteristics and college attendance continue into the future, US population trends project more than a 10% reduction in college enrollments by the end of the 2020s. So what that really means, here's an interesting fact. That shows an 11% fewer first-time college attenders in the year 2029 than today. So 9 years from now, we'll be down 11% in first-time higher education students. That's big. So with that, and that landscape around current enrollment and what I call the enrollment crisis, let's continue. Next slide, please.
And so if these long-term challenges weren't alarming enough, the last 10, 11 months have brought much more immediate enrollment crisis in front of all of us. These are numbers on the screen here are all things I'm sure everyone has seen and to some extent or another are experiencing on your own campuses. We have seen in the past higher education running counter-cyclical to the overall economy. In the last recession in 2008 and 2009, we saw a significant increase in enrollments from students. Now this had a different set of trends and tailwinds supporting it. It had very strong federal government support on one level, at least, with increased Pell Grant amounts, increased amounts of money that students could borrow. And we saw an increase in the number of adult learners going to school. And I think a question everyone has is, will we see that with this economic downturn? Will we see significant numbers of unemployed folks turning to higher education? And one thought I'd have you think about for the course of this presentation is a hypothesis and idea that if we do see large amounts of adult students starting school, that there are a small number of institutions, the very large online schools, the large not-for-profit online schools who stand to benefit from this. And as that is a potential scenario, let's move ahead. So a word about StraighterLine, a little bit of an introduction of our organization for folks who are not familiar. You can think about StraighterLine as a company that helps schools address college readiness and retention challenges at scale. We deliver online competency-based programs. We have a suite of approximately 60 online gen ed courses. Our new Academy platform is a program that can be delivered to students at approximately $130 a month through our sort of innovative subscription pricing. When we work with partner institutions to create these programs, we do so at no upfront or ongoing costs to our partner institutions. We've served over 40,000 students in the past 12 months. We currently work with over 150 accredited colleges and universities, and approximately 2,000 schools have accepted StraighterLine course for transfer credit inception to date. So when you think about working with StraighterLine or StraighterLine as a partner, what's the context to think of us? I think at the simplest level, we help schools generate incremental revenue. How do we do that? One, helping schools grow enrollments and expand their enrollment funnels. We're able to help serve students where there are readiness concerns or challenges. We're able to improve retention and help institutions bridge back stop-out students. We're able to do this quickly and at scale. We're able to do this at a low price and by lowering the risk for students. And we're able to deliver these courses and these online programs under your institution's brand. Next slide, please.
Great. At this point, I'd just like to give you some context about my institution and how we're working with StraighterLine. The University of Central Missouri is a regional public comprehensive institution, and it's located 45 minutes southeast of Kansas City, Missouri. We have another campus location located in Lee Summit, Missouri, which is considered a suburb of Kansas City. We were founded in 1871, and our motto is Education for Service. As you can imagine, we're celebrating our 150th anniversary next year. We serve approximately 12,000 students, but we saw a decline this fall in both our undergrad and grad populations. Mostly our grad was a drop in our international student population. We serve primarily undergrads, and 31% of those students are part-time. Our Lee Summit campus serves primarily adults who are working during the day and going to school in the evening. The majority of all our adult students are female, and their average age is 33. Some of our most popular majors include nursing, education, and criminal justice across both undergrad and graduate. And of course, we're historically the state teachers college, so you see a lot of our graduates move into teaching careers. So within the greater Kansas City area, there are approximately 317,000 adults that have some college and no degree. And so as we think about recruiting these students back to college to finish their degree, they will need remedial coursework for degree progression or the ability to transfer credit from partners like StraighterLine. And as you can imagine, like all institutions, we're starting to see more requests for credit recognition from partners like StraighterLine. And we send those requests out to our academic departments who review these requests, and then we work with the registrar's office to transcript them. For us, the overwhelming request that we get is primarily in math. Adult students, they need accessible, convenient math courses. And we've been working also with StraighterLine on providing remedial pathways for adults once they're either recruited back or they start with us as freshman students. Next slide.
So for this conversation, we're going to talk to folks about sort of rethinking and reimagining different solutions you might think about for different stages of your funnel, right? If the higher education funnel for a student starts way up here at the prospect level, and it narrows and narrows and narrows through inquiry and application and admission, and ultimately down to graduation, we know that students fall out of this funnel at all stages and for a variety of reasons. And that oftentimes finding the right solution for that student who's fallen out of the sort of the normal path can be a challenge for schools. And what we want to present here for the rest of this conversation are a few specific ways that you might address some of these challenges. So next slide, please. So on the sort of admission and enrollment side, you think about, your marketing team creates a great campaign or series of campaigns to attract prospects. And you get that prospect to visit your site, talk to an admissions counselor, perhaps visit campus. You get them to start an application. You get them to finish the application. And they've submitted it. And there's always a percentage of students that are not going to be admitted. And this is a group of folks that you have spent a lot of time on, a lot of effort on, potentially a fair amount of money on. You've brought them to the altar, but for a variety of reasons, you're not able to admit them. The one thing we want to talk about are some solutions to this and how you might think about expanding your enrollment funnel by focusing here on the population that you're not at the initial moment, able to admit. So next slide, please. So we are able to help our partner institutions on this pre-enrollment population, taking students that are being turned away from one way or another, referring them into a StraighterLine powered program where they are able to take a suite of courses from us. If they are successful in completing that program of courses, then they've proven that they can handle the rigors of college level coursework and then can be admitted to that partner institution. And what we found, at least in a number of cases, is a 30% yield on students who were referred to StraighterLine or a StraighterLine powered program because they weren't able to be admitted. 30% of those referrals completing the program, successfully returning and enrolling in the university. And that 30% return from those referred to us represents a significant increase in the overall enrollment conversion rate. That 30% is a significant number of students and a significant number of incremental revenue. I think probably the most important thing to share when we talk about this is, right, these are students that were not admitted in a lot of cases for academic readiness reasons. The institution decided they weren't a good fit at that moment in time. What we've seen through a significant amount of data and research is the student that successfully completes the StraighterLine program and returns to their institution has a much higher retention rate than other students, much more likely to graduate, much more likely to move through the program more quickly. So we're finding that these students, by taking the courses with us, the online courses, and then returning, are very well prepared to succeed when they return. Next slide, please.
So let's take that concept that Mark's talking about in terms of readiness in that funnel And let's talk through that readiness gap. So every year in the United States, nearly 60% of first-year college students discover that despite being fully eligible, despite being admitted, despite getting ready and prepping and going to post-secondary, that they're actually not really ready. So Laurel, let's take your earlier number of 317,000 students in Missouri alone who have some readiness needs, some potential remediation needs. If I applied that 60%, that means just in the state of Missouri, you're looking at 190,000 students who are coming into school who aren't yet ready to really be successful. And we all know that that lack of readiness is a major culprit in low graduation rates, culprit in retention and persistence. And as a result, a lot of institutions, including institutions we partner with, are working on college readiness as a key strategic initiative, helping those populations bridge back into school or admit and get ready to really be successful. Next slide, please. So with that, what is this student who's coming in? What is this who are these 190,000 students? What does the modern learner really look like? And how does StraighterLine and Central Missouri, University of Central Missouri, how do we help that readiness gap? What does that look like? Well, we know that since 1987, the population of non-traditional adult learners, 25 to 44 years old, has significantly increased. As a matter of fact, since 87, it's grown at a rate of 83%. Now, it hit its peak growth in 2010, and currently, we saw on previous slides, so I'll remind us here, that we're looking at a population of 37 million people at the top of that funnel. They're not ready, have stopped out, coming for the first time, but have some college, maybe even just a course, but have never actually completed a degree. And even though we peaked in 2010 and that growth rate is slowing, it's still steady and it's still increasing. So when we think about that non-traditional learner, what we used to call and still do non-traditional, 74% of that 37 million has some characteristic of non-traditional. Exactly what we've been talking about in this conversation. Not ready, stopped out, needs remedial education for a variety of reasons, maybe a potentially struggling student. Laurel, with that, I'll pass it to Laurel.
Okay. Well, we all know modern learners see themselves as consumers, and as institutions of higher ed, we know that they are our customers. Modern learners expect an easy-to-navigate website so they can shop degree programs, understand the time to degree, and potentially what their outcomes are when it comes to careers. They expect personalized service when they decide to engage with us, and that's when we can really start to build relationships with program advisors. The service has to be convenient, offering an opportunity to connect 24/7, either through in-person or through a person, or an AI service. Modern learners are super price conscious, where a cost calculator on your website makes a difference, and easy to understand fee assessments are front and center. And so when I think about what the modern learner needs, I think about some enrollment initiatives at UCM that we're currently engaged in, which is aligning our transfer credit and articulation services to better serve students, and our Degrees When Due initiative. UCM is participating in a national degree reclamation initiative, and we are participating along with several other Missouri institutions in cohort 2. We personally at our institution have identified 465 students who've stopped out at UCM over the past 6 years that have earned more than 90 credit hours and have a cumulative GPA of at least a 2.0 or higher. Next slide. So when I think about recruiting our stop-outs back, there are a lot of challenges, right, to setting up these remedial pathways. As a regional comprehensive institution, I can identify with most of these, such as startup costs for remedial pathways, scalability, or even enrollment models that lack flexibility. So thinking about models, how do I build our Degrees When Due initiative to serve students who don't have a 2.0 GPA or higher and dropped out with us. Perhaps it's through an expanded remedial pathway like the one we're implementing for math, almost maybe like a boot camp or an expanded pathway that would include other prep courses like English or study skills. If the students perform well, they're admitted. Amy, do you want to address readiness?
Yeah, so you had mentioned it earlier, Laurel, thank you, a little bit, that we had built a readiness for developmental math pathways with Central Missouri, and that's one of the specialties at StraighterLine. We have readiness pathways for stop-out populations, starting populations, a variety of types of that modern learner, but we also do it for writing as well. And we find that that developmental component, in addition to a self-paced, highly supportive program for adults in math and writing, gets them on their way, re-enrolled back into the institution, ready to be successful, better prepared. And Mark's going to talk a little bit later about what that data looks like and how those stop outs and readiness students are more successful. Thank you. Next slide, please.
So StraighterLine was essentially built from the ground up for the modern learner. In hearing Laurel talk about some of the expectations and the needs and the concerns of that adult student, we really feel like we have built a program experience that's just really perfect for this kind of student. Our programs are 100% online. Programs have no start dates or no deadline dates. Students can progress through our courses truly at their own pace. So they can go as quickly as they're able to if they can master the material. They can take as much time as they need, depending on their life circumstance or the need for additional support. We build on significant scaffolded services for our students. We have entryway math and writing support. We have coaching services available for students, particularly valuable for students either first time in an online environment or stopped-out students who maybe have been out of school for years, helping them think of how to study, how to prepare for tests. And we also offer tutoring at no cost for students needing extra work. We do this at a low price. Finances are an extreme concern for these students. We're able to do it at a $130 a month subscription price. This not only lowers the absolute cost for students, it lowers the cost and the risk for students who are unsuccessful. We know that not every student is going to successfully complete. In our model, they're able to make that decision without significant financial investment. They haven't risked financial aid. And so we think that the reduction of risk is critically important. We deliver all the services in this simple front subscription pricing, e-textbooks and the digital materials needed, all delivered. And even with this extreme affordability, extreme flexibility, we are seeing extremely strong outcomes. Students complete our courses at nearly twice the national average for online adult students. As we showed earlier, and I'll share in a couple of slides, our students do exceptionally well when returning to their, or starting their university degree program. And our students are satisfied with that experience. 91% say they would recommend to StraighterLine to a friend or family member. When you consider the scale, 40+ thousand students served, I think that's quite a testament to the support and service our teams are able to provide. Next slide. So some specific data on our programs that support stopped out students and bridge them back into degree programs. Again, given the affordability and the flexibility, working with a number of institutions, a very large statewide college completion initiative, to get folks into a StraighterLine powered program as a step before they matriculate back into their institution. in a large study with one of our partners, we've seen the students returning from StraighterLine graduate at more than twice the rate of students coming in through a separate pipeline. And next slide. We also see that these strong success rates are seen through a number of populations, including first-generation students and minority populations also do well through the StraighterLine powered programs when they return to their institution. So when you think about some of the challenges you're facing and out-of-the-box solutions, the need, maybe constrained budgets, the need to move quickly, concerns around scale, this is how we've thought about our partner programs, our academy product in particular as a solution for, again, pre-enrollment, readiness, and stop-out populations. And I think that's it before we go into our Q&A.
So we're now open for questions from any of you. And of course, we open with your COVID hobbies. So, you know, in the chat room, we'd love to hear what your COVID hobbies have been. And I'll pause with that and we'll just open the floor. Thank you so much.